Part 1. You will hear a man who runs a volunteer agency interviewing a woman called Grace who is applying to do volunteer work. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, Grace. I'm William. Thanks for coming in for this interview. It's very important for us to meet our volunteers in person.
I understand. It's no problem at all.
OK, let's get started. What's the best phone number to contact you on?
My mobile phone's probably best. The number's 021 636 7189. But I can't always answer it during the day. I'll give you my email address as well. I check it frequently.
OK, I'll make a note that email's a good way to contact you. What's the address?
It's graceb@travel.co.nz. I chose it when I was younger, and I just haven't changed it since.
It's easy to remember. Now, do you have any particular qualifications, Grace?
I'm a housewife now, but I used to be in teaching. I trained for that and got my diploma, although I haven't done it for years. Before having children, I worked as a bank teller.
All right. I need to find out when you'll be available during the week. You said you have children. Are they at school?
Yes, both of them are. So I can't start work before 8:15 in the morning or work past 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So you'd be looking for about 4 or 5 hours a day, say 9:15 a.m. to 2 p.m? That gives you time to get to and from school to work.
That's perfect. It's important for me to be there for my children.
Of course. And are you looking to work Monday to Friday?
Yes. If it gets to be too much, I can rethink it later.
Now, Grace, you obviously have a lot of work experience, but have you done any volunteer work before?
During the Rugby World Cup, there were many visitors who didn't know their way around or what they should see and do in Auckland City. So I worked as a guide to help introduce the city to tourists. I really enjoyed it.
OK, good. Have you done anything else? Perhaps when you were at school or university? Did you do any volunteer work there?
When I was at university, the manager of a netball team asked me to be the coach, and I did that.
Great. It sounds like you like your sports.
I used to, but not so much nowadays.
OK.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
If not sports, do you have any other interests?
Oh, yes. I love to get out in my garden, and I grow most of my own vegetables. I love flowers and flower arranging. But I don't suppose there's much volunteer work associated with those kinds of things.
You'd be surprised. Any other hobbies?
Like most people, I guess, I like music. Actually, I can play the guitar, but I haven't done much for a while, so I'm a bit rusty. One day I'd like to have a go at the flute.
OK. That gives me a good idea of the type of work you might be interested in. Ideally, it'd be something that combines your experience and your hobbies. If you're interested in something outdoors, I have a position helping out on a farm. That's just for a month. It's not too physically demanding, though it does require you to be on your feet all day. And it'd be nice as long as the weather is fine, but I imagine it could be uncomfortable in the rain or the heat. In the past, we've had many positions working in community centres. They've been working with the disabled or teens. The position we have available now is with elderly men and women. They have activities like flower arranging, music lessons, sing-alongs, things like that.
Both of those sound great. I'm really open to anything.
That's nice to know. Just a couple more questions. Why do you want to do volunteer work?
Well, now that both my children are in school, I'd like to make some friends as I've got the time on my hands. Also, I like the idea of helping others.
And last question, how did you find our agency? We aren't in the phone book. Did a friend tell you about us?
No, I was on my way to school the other day and I saw your advertisement at the supermarket.
It's good to know someone sees those ads. Thank you again for coming.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You will hear a man called John Davies, who is the chairman of a photography club, giving some information to members of the club. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Hi everyone, my name's John Davies. Welcome to this month's Photography Club. I'm very pleased to see a few new members in the audience, and I hope you find the club both useful and enjoyable. Now, many of you have been asking me about good photography magazines. They're all slightly different, and it really depends on what you're looking for. One of the most popular is Camera Ready. It's packed full of recommendations on where to buy the best cameras and whether the internet really has the best bargains. And it also has lots of interviews with ordinary hobby photographers like you and me. One good thing is that there's no jargon, so it's great for people who are new to photography. Outdoor Lens might suit you if you want a magazine full of inspiring and amazing images. The colour printing is extraordinarily good in this publication, though that leaves little room for handy tips about actually taking a photo. I personally buy Photographer Today. You won't find free giveaways inside or beautiful images of exotic locations, but it does help me keep abreast of movements and trends within the photography world. It includes reviews and articles about the latest equipment too, which are well worth consulting before you buy anything. Photo Now is a fairly new publication dedicated to creative photography. It's expensive, but it's packed full of recommendations on how to get the best photograph you can. For example, how to use software to create special effects. Once a year, There's going to be a competition where you can win anything from the latest equipment to a photography holiday. For those of you who are into photographing nature, then wild photos might be just the thing for you. There isn't a print version of this one. You have to download it. And it's aimed more at the professional than the beginner, so there isn't much in the way of tips, as it assumes you know all the basics. Photo Monthly is happy to accept photos from the general public for publication. This does mean, of course, that the images are not quite up to professional standard. You don't get paid any money, so if you're happy to have your work published for free, then this is the magazine for you. There's also a regular travel feature where you can find good tips about the best places to go with your camera.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, I promised to talk about my recent holiday with a company called Photo Safari, when I went with my wife to Kenya in East Africa. I chose this company because it has a good reputation and it offers a number of useful features for guests. Don't expect to stay in a 5-star hotel, though. The campsites we were on were good, but a little basic for some people on the tour, though there was a locker provided for all our camera gear. The company is suitable for people with any level of photographic expertise, and I learned a lot from the other guests. The only extras you need to pay for are flights, and you'll also need to organise your own transfers to the accommodation when you arrive. Otherwise, it's all-inclusive, and I have to say the catering was excellent, particularly the breakfasts. So, what did I think of the holiday? Well, everything was very well organised, and the guides were great at finding wildlife for us to photograph. Even if one morning we didn't see a lion or elephant, there was always something to snap. There were some people there who weren't into photography and were there just for a holiday, like my wife, but even they had fun and found lots to see and do. I do think, however, that more information should be given, like about what to wear. I had on a blue denim shirt one night and quickly had to change, as the colour apparently attracts certain nasty insects. And we went in May, and later found out that June to October would have been a better time for spotting wildlife. So, what advice would I give to anyone?
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2. Part 3. You will hear two business students called Janet and Michael discussing their research into the marketing of different kinds of shampoo. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, Janet. How are you getting on with the shampoo marketing project?
Hi, Michael. It's interesting. I've read how shampoo marketing has developed over the last 100 years.
Oh, I didn't think we needed to do that.
True, but I'm interested anyway. Basically, what was once sold as an economical way of getting your hair clean has evolved into a beauty product.
Right.
And shampoo's interesting because it's a key influence in how we see ourselves. You've heard of bad hair days.
When your hair looks bad, maybe you didn't wash it and you feel bad about it. Heard of them, yes. Had one? No. Don't think they're real. Bad hair days? Come on.
Well, whatever you want to call them, that's not what research from Yale is suggesting. They're not just imagined, and both sexes are equally affected by them. And when they happen, people tend to perform and feel worse than usual.
Right. And I've been reading about shampoo ingredients, chemicals like sodium lauryl sulfate,
Methyl chloride. Many of the manufacturers tend to use these or others like them, though they keep it quiet.
Right. When it comes to the product packaging, they're strangely silent about it.
Another area it would be interesting to investigate is the labeling on bottles. Apparently, printing directly onto the bottles costs about 50% less than sticking a printed label on, because it's a much quicker process. But manufacturers are lukewarm about this because it doesn't enhance the visual impact of the bottle. It comes across as a bit cheap.
We need to think about environmental issues. I was surprised how little recycled plastic goes into the bottles.
I think it's because light-colored plastic is more difficult to make from recycled stuff.
Yeah, but manufacturers can make their packaging more environmentally friendly just by making it less heavy. I'd like to find out whether some of them actually do when we do the research.
Yes, that's worth looking into. Thinking about you as a customer, what's important when choosing shampoo?
I'm always wary of special offers. When something's flagged as being half price, it rarely is, really. But if there's a make I've never seen before, I'm usually up for giving it a go, rather than sticking to one or two favorite brands all my life.
Interesting.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Shall we discuss some of these shampoo advertisements then? And try and identify what sort of psychological response each one is trying to get from the viewer?
Okay. What about Zing?
Well, it'd probably appeal equally to men and women. In the ad, we see this happy family, lovely home, healthy, good-looking children.
With clean hair.
Obviously, yes. And I think we're supposed to watch the ad and think, wow, if only my life was like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the advertisers want the viewers to almost wish they were the people in the ad.
Sure. I mean, that's very common in advertising.
But not universal. You know that ad for Splash shampoo that lasts about 5 minutes and where there's a story?
Oh, yes. The commercial about the couple? And all through the commercial, it's not clear if they're going to break up or stay together?
Exactly. Well, I think the marketing's been done very cleverly there. I don't think we're supposed to want to be the characters in the commercial, but we're supposed to get to know them a bit.
Yes, well, I thought the story was effective. You're glad to learn when it's over that they're obviously going to stay together. But I think the role of the shampoo in the story was a bit thin, to say the least.
Maybe. I suppose some manufacturers don't want to bore people with all the science.
Sure.
And then there's the Just Go advertisement.
Yes, that had lots of technical information about what the shampoo actually consists of. I suppose they want customers to feel confident that when they buy Just Go, they are at least making an informed decision.
Yes, they're buying something that will do the job they want it to.
That's it.
I've read one of the most effective shampoo ads in recent times was the one for Brozine.
Yes, but there's no commentary, just images of the shampoo and lots of clean hair. I suppose the effect, though, is very calming, with soft music and very peaceful imagery.
Yes, but at the end of the ad, we've hardly learned anything about the product, have we?
I suppose not. But isn't it interesting how much the ads for what are essentially very similar products vary so much?
That is the end of Part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 3. Part 4. You will hear a student of anthropology giving a presentation on ancient symbols used in cave art. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello everyone. My presentation today is about the cave paintings produced by prehistoric artists about 30,000 years ago, and in particular the symbols that appear in or near these paintings. These symbols are found deep in caves in many countries around the world, but the ones I'm going to talk about today are mainly European. Firstly, a little about the most common symbols. The symbols that have been discovered are of different shapes and sizes. Some are easily recognizable as they're quite simple. The most basic are just a series of dots, but they may also include forms such as the triangle. However, other symbols are more complex. A case in point is the wavy line. This is sometimes used on its own, but the same wavy line is also used as part of a larger picture of a horse, so we think this is what the wavy line represents. One very important symbol is what's called the hand symbol. This frequently appears on the walls of caves. I'll talk about it in a bit more detail. Firstly, how it was made. The paint itself was made up from a variety of things that cave artists would have had access to. They had fire, so charcoal was one ingredient. Another was the fat from the animals they would have hunted. And lastly, the saliva from their own mouths. Then there's the question of how they actually applied the runny paint onto the walls of the cave. It certainly wouldn't have been easy. They would have had to use something hollow. In fact, it's likely to have looked like a straw, like the kind we use for drinking nowadays. They'd have sucked the paint up into it, then blown it out. Researchers have recently recreated both the paint and the processes used to make the hand symbols. The artist would have first put his hand flat against the wall, then blown the paint onto the wall, creating an outline of the hand. The researchers who've tried to recreate the process have said that not only is it a difficult technique to master, but also that a strange noise is produced. It also led them to feel lightheaded, so we can only imagine that these cave artists felt the same. I'm sure you'll agree that these symbols are really interesting, but they're also of vital importance. Researchers have now identified a total of 26 symbols commonly used in France and Spain. We only have this knowledge thanks to a database that's been created and which is being added to all the time. It clearly demonstrates that many symbols are often used in particular combinations, even if they're in different places. This is significant, as it looks like different tribes of cave people who lived and travelled through the area at that time would have seen these markings as well as adding to them. Although researchers don't believe that these symbols are a language as such, they are happy to call them a type of code. There is evidence to support this idea. One sequence of 5 symbols is particularly common in caves in Spain. Exactly the same sequence of 5 symbols has been found carved into a necklace made from the teeth of a red deer. So it appears that this combination of symbols may have had a special meaning. Of course, many of these explanations are theory as opposed to hard facts, which is why there is disagreement among researchers about the significance of what we are seeing. One theory is called the Great Leap Forward. The idea is that around 35,000 years ago, there was a sudden increase in creativity which led to the invention of the boat, among other things. However, not everyone agrees. In fact, many scientists believe that what has been found in Africa seems to indicate that this increase in creativity happened much earlier, around 70 to 90,000 years ago, and more gradually. One example of an artifact that is offered to support the idea is the discovery of different sorts of arrows, which would have been used for hunting. These scientists suggest that the reason more symbols haven't been found from this earlier time is because they would have been painted on things that did not survive, such as wood. In fact, we're very lucky that caves have protected these specimens as well as they have, or we might never have known what these artists were capable of.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.